Alright, so welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, we're trying to see some features that are in Pydantic and how to implement them in DataClasses, right? So Pydantic and DataClass have two very useful libraries that can be useful in case you want to validate your data, as well as to add some serializations and some code generation to make your work easy. So with Pydantic, you can do mostly data validation and serialization. With DataClasses, you can also serve as a code generator to generate automatically your init, your REPL, and your lambda methods for you out of the box, right? Which is very useful. So in this tutorial, we're trying to see how some of the features that we can implement in Pydantic and see how to implement them in DataClasses. So let's start. So I'm using Pydantic version 2.5, and then we're going to start and see how to fix this issue. How do you add extra Kwargs in Pydantic? So we start with the basics of Pydantic. So for example, in case in Pydantic, I can just go it from let me make it bigger. Pydantic. But I want to import models, base model, right? And then I also need to import my config dictionary. So this is how to do that. So in case I want to create a class, I can just go with my books model or my books class. Then I'll call it as my base model. That is it. And then I can define my fields. So if I go with this is string, the name of the book, and then the price of the book is going to be a float. So this is something very basic, right? And then in case I want to create an instance, so to create an instance or an object, we can just go with this option here. So let's say bk for book instance, and I can just go with my books, and I can pass in my name, which in our case we can call it as a book of Jesse. Yeah, and then the price will be $45 or something, right? Perfect. So with this option here, I can see the data, the REPL, right? This is the representation of the box. I can also get it, fetch the attribute by dot notation. So name, I get it here. Book of Jesse. I can also do pk dot price. It works out of the box, right? And because I've defined these things here, it's almost going to help me with validation, but I can also add more validation to it. Perfect. That is it. but what if and in case I want to dump it, dump as dictionary, right? I can do the same thing. So bk.model dump. So there is model JSON, there is model dump to convert it to a dictionary, and I get it perfectly out of the box. So how do you do something like this, right, with data classes? So we're trying to see that, but in case I have extra value that is not defined here, and I want to be able to support it. So by default, in case you're using base pure Python, you would have done something like this. So class and then books, and then you just go with let's say books by, yeah, right? And I can just go with Python. I would have done something like this, underscore init, underscore, and I'll pass in self, and I'll pass in the name, and then the price, and then I would have passed in asterisk Kwargs, right? So this is one of the ways. So I would have done something like this. Then I'll define the name. It's going to be name self.price. It's going to be the price, and then I'll just move on with the Kwargs and stuff, right? So with Pydantic, how do you support extra keyword argument? So how do you do that in Pydantic? So the simplest way is that we can do this option here. So I'm going to go back here. How do you do support extra Kwargs? The simplest way, Pydantic allows you to be able to do that with a simple argument. So let's call it as books extra, right? And then all you have to do is that I can just pass in my there's, in the old version you could have done the config here, but in the new version you just go with version 2 model config, then you specify what you want it to be, right? So there's model config, and then there's extra, there's config dictionary, which takes in extra is equal to allow, So allow extra. So this is how it goes, right? So because in this instance here, this class, I have already defined what I need to initialize. I cannot do this. So I can, in this place here, I cannot do this. Because I want to support Kwargs, I cannot do this. If I do this, and let's say I add age, it's equal to, or author, it's equal to, let's say, Jesse, right? This will work perfect, but you see that the author was omitted, right? It will not give you any error. The author was omitted, but in case I want to find the attribute, so bk.author, this will fail, right? So attribute error, because this was not initialized. So since this was not initialized, it's going to fail, right, with this attribute error. So how do you pass in an argument that you did not define in a class, but you can fetch it with the dot notation? So that is, you could have, if you have done Kwargs, you could have been able to do something like that. So how do you do that with Pydantic? So this is how you do that with the extra. And now I can just go back again. Let me copy this one here. I'll pass the books extra just here. And now you can see that that class was, because I said allow extra, right? Now you could see it's part of the repo, and I can just do bk.author, and then it's not going to give you any error, right? So that is how to allow extra keywords that you do not define in your fields in Pydantic. So in case you have a JSON file, in case you have a dictionary, and then you want to unpack. So let's say I had my dictionary, this particular dictionary here, and I want to unpack from a JSON file. I want to unpack it into my books extra and create. So let's go to my params. So paste it here, and let's change the name. So book Peter Paul, right? And then the price will be 50. And then I have another argument. So I have author. This is Paul. And I have the year the book was written. Yeah, it's supposed to be the book that was written. So the book was written 19 something, 65, something like this. In case I want to create an instance from this, right, I would have to do something like this. So I have my books, and I go with my unpacking because it's a keyword argument, params. This will work, right? But these ones are no more there, right? It will only just fetch what is available. To fetch the name and the price, which is available, name and price, but it will not fetch these ones. But with the allow extra, if I go with the same option here for the allow extra, so book extra, this is for the allow extra. If I go with this, now you can see that that one is also initialized, right? Very cool. So this is a very useful function in case you have a JSON file with a lot of fields that you did not define in your base model, right, in your class, and you want to allow and support them. You can use Pydantic allow extra to allow you to be able to do that. Now, how do you do the same thing with data classes, right? So that is a challenge that I was facing, and then I want to show you the solution. So the simplest way is, how do you do the same thing, right? So how to support extra Kwargs in data classes, right? So doing the same thing we did, what that we have done above, we can do that with data classes. So how do you do that? So the simplest way is that I'm going to call it as from data classes import data class, and then I also want to import field. Then I want to create my class. So let's go with class book DC, right, for data class, and then I'll just go straight away with the same thing we did here. So with data class, you can just go with the name. It's going to be a string, and then the age or the price, which is a float, right? And in case I want to convert this entire stuff into a data class, all I have to do is bring the decorator on top of it. So come back here and put my data class here, right? And now this is now a data class, and I can do all that I have done above, right? I can also do something like can initialize it. So I want to copy the ones above. So let's copy this. We can actually copy this. We can also do the same thing here. So books DC for data class, and then I can just go with my BK2, right? If I go with this, it will book DC is not defined, it's book DC. And now you see that it works. I can just go BK2. We have the entire stuff initialized, and then book2.name, we get the attribute, the same thing. Bouquet, we can do book2. Say price, and we get it right. In case I want to convert it to a dictionary, to convert to a dictionary, I can just go it from data classes, import my as date. There is as dictionary and as tuple. Then I can just pass in as date, pass in my BK2, and then we have it there, right? So this works. We can do most of the same stuff that we did with Pydantic with data class and more. Now, how do you add extra argument, right? How do you add extra argument for this? Because by default, data classes is implementing the pure Python method here under the hood. It's doing this, right? So how do you add Kwargs to it? How do you allow to accept extra Kwargs, like how Pydantic is done? So there are several ways, but the simplest I was able to find out is this approach. So this is using, what we will do is that we will pick this particular class and add a class method to it, right? And then with the class method, we can now modify, and then how do I call it, modify this one to be able to accept Kwargs. So if I have my params that I had here, this params here, if I pass it into this, because the params are more, than what is there, it's going to fail, right? You're going to get an unexpected keyword argument. So how do you fix this, right? So because the params here, there is no author name here within our initialized class, there's only name and price. So how do you fix this, right? So that's where we'll be using this approach. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go back to the simplest way, just go with this option here. I already solved it from Googling, so I want to show you the way. So I'm going to go it from inspect, import signature, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class. So the answer is here. If you go to the name of this is called here, this is it. You can see that I actually googled it, and the answer is from Annie. Annie did a very nice work. So this is the solution, right? So he gave us a solution of how to do that. So what I'll do is I'll copy this solution here. It's a class method, and then you can apply it to your class here, right? You can apply that one to your class here. So something like this, right? And this is going to work. This is okay. This is the solution, but I want to make this one into a decorator, right? Instead of this approach, I want to convert this into a decorator and use it, right? So how do I do that? So I'm going to convert the class into a decorator. So to be my def, then I can call it as to say add from Kwargs. Oh yeah, something like that. We can say add extra from Kwargs, something like this, right? And then we can just give it any name as you want. So add extra from Kwargs or add from Kwargs. Then this one, we're going to take my class instance, because I'm creating a decorator. A decorator is a function that modifies another function. So I'll paste in this class method function from Annie, right? The same thing. So what it's doing is that you are fetching the constructor for the signature, right? And then we're going to split the Kwargs into native ones and then the new ones. So the native ones are the ones that are defined, like name and price, and the new ones are the ones that are not defined, like author and then the year, right? So we are splitting them into two, and we're going to check if it's available and then set the respective value. So now after that, we're going to use the native ones, so the ones that were defined, so name and then price. Then the one that are left, that is the new one that were not defined, we are going to set them up with set data. So the name and then the value, right? Because always the Kwargs is a dictionary, right? Perfect. And then, so this is going to be our function within our function, and then we need to call this particular function, right? So we need to apply this, our function, to our class method. So it's going to be my CLS, and this is what we have from here and from here. Then I'm going to go with CLS.from Kwargs. That's the name we are giving, and then I'm going to apply my class method to my add from Kwargs, right? So to that particular function, from Kwargs, this function. So we are applying this function, a class method to that particular function, right? Perfect. So that is all that we'll be doing. Perfect. And then from there we can now return the class again. So this is a simple decorator function that we'll be using to decorate our classes. So now I'll go back again to this class that I had. I'll copy it, right? And then since it said the class method that is going to be used to decorate another class, because we are calling fields here, we need to pass it on top of my data class. So I'll call it as my data class, which is going to be my add from Kwargs, right? So if I pass this one on top of this, now this my class add from Kwargs has this from Kwargs attribute already. So now I can do the same thing as I did. I can run this. Apologies for copying and pasting many times. I can do the same thing, right? And it's still going to work. This works, right? So bk2, it works. In case I have additional values that are not available and I want to pass it, I can also do the same thing. So I can have, because if I go with this option here, it will fail. So let's say author is going to be 50. Yeah, author of Jesse, right? This will fail, right? It's still failing, but for it to pass, all you have to do is, it's a class method. So we are going to call the from class, right? So we're going to call this from class because it's a class method, and then we're going to unpack that particular values there. Right, so I'll pick this params that we had here. So this will fail, but if I go with params with this value, and now I just go with my book dc dot from Kwargs, right? Then now I can pass in my asterisk, can unpack my params, and this will pass, right? If I go with this option here, so let's go with as bk3, so that it's passing, and I go with bk3, so that the native ones were initialized, these were initialized, but these still, as these two, the author and then the year, are still available. I can access it. So bk3 dot author, so we have it here, so it's working. bk3 dot year, it's working, right? So that is how to actually support allowing extra arguments or extra Kwargs in data classes. So what you have to do is that you just have to add this from Kwargs to your class, data class, or you can use this class decorator function and pass it on data classes, and then in case you want to call it, you call it with from Kwargs, right? From Kwargs. There's also another way you can actually accept other arguments without it failing, by using the same set data method, and then it's still going to work, right? So that is something that I want to share with you. I hope you have learned something. So you have seen our data classes and then Pydantic are very similar. There is also, in case you don't want to go through all of this, there is Pydantic.DataClasses, which has most of the features from both Pydantic and DataClasses together, right? It's just a decorator used to decorate your data classes. But I prefer to go with the, in case I want to use data classes, I want to use only data class. And in case I want to use Pydantic, I want to use only Pydantic, not mixture of them, which is okay. But for me, I prefer only data classes or only Pydantic. Okay, so that's how to add extra Kwargs in Pydantic and also in data classes. So all you have to do is, with data classes, it's different. With Pydantic, you just model config dictionary extra. But with data classes, you have to construct your class method from the answer from Ali, credits to him, and then you can just pass it around like this, right? Perfect. So that is how for you to work. You can, if you do this, if I go with this option here, so B4, and I just go with this here, it's still going to fail because the name of the class is from Kwargs, so that's when it's going to pass. If I do this here, it will fail, right? So you have to always pass it from Kwargs, right? Perfect. So that's something I wanted to share with you. I hope you have learned something. So thank you for watching, and then see you another time. Jesus saves.